Good evening, and welcome. I'm Sue Ostrom. I'm the pastor here at Mill Plain United Methodist Church, and we are delighted to welcome Starfire from Los Altos United Methodist Church. This congregation, some of you may not know, we have more connection to this group than you think of. Robin Bauman and Andrew French are alumni of this group. They sang in this choir when they were kids, and we have Karen Howard and Paul and Donna French and probably some others that I'm not thinking of right off the hand. That's it. Who were members of this church. And so they've actually brought some of those gifts here to our congregation. And we are really grateful for that. And it is a joy to welcome Starfire with us tonight. And so I'm looking forward to this show. Welcome.
Thank you so much. It is wonderful to be with you. I'm Dirk Damonte, and Carol and I are the co-creators of this musical. Carol's the director of this group, and it's just great being with you. This is our first time at this church, but like Sue said, it doesn't feel like it because we see so many familiar faces, and it feels like home again. We are on day 5 of a 10-day tour, and so we're kind of on that hump day, and it's just been wonderful so far. Starfire Singers is the high school youth choir at Los Altos. We sing almost every week in worship, and we've been touring every summer for 39 years, and this is our last tour. And so this is a very special one for us, and we're really grateful for the chance to be here at Mill Plain and to do to make more connections with you. A word about the show, Weave. This show was created out of we haven't toured since 2019, and I'm sure you can figure out why. It's just been a really challenging and difficult 3 years, and especially challenging for young people as they've tried to navigate school online and trying to be socially distanced and isolated. And as we were moving, well, we haven't moved out of the pandemic, but as we were moving toward realizing that we'd be able to be back in person and be able to be touring, we sat down with these guys, these kids, and we talked to them about what are some of the things that you've been struggling with, what are some of the specific challenges that have happened in the last 3 years, but not just the last 3 years, that have happened over the course of your life. What are some of the stories of things you've really been grappling with, and things that have really been painful and challenging, but also what are some of the hopes and joys and dreams that you carry with you, and what are some of the wonderful connections with God and with others that you've experienced. And we sat down and we shared those stories, and it was several amazingly moving times. And we wrote all of that down, and that is the essence of the script. That is the script tonight comes from their stories, and almost all of the script is their own words. Now, we've combined some of them, and so not every person is sharing their own story, but every story you hear tonight is real and has happened to someone on this stage. And I think that makes it very special. Our hope is that it's not just us telling our stories, but it's us connecting with you through stories so that we can tell each other stories, and that our stories can weave together, and that not just as United Methodists, not even just as Christians, but as people here on this planet, we can realize that we are children of God who share stories and who each have unique stories, and that the more we can weave those stories together, the more we can listen to each other and share with each other, the better the hope for humanity is. And so Weave is a time for sharing stories. And these are these particular stories, but I hope they inspire stories in you as well. So welcome, so glad to be here, and we now proudly present Weave.
Tyler, it's so good to see you. How are you?
I'm good.
I found this last time. It might be yours.
I don't think this is mine.
Hi, Michael. It's been so long.
Michael, is this yours? I believe that is mine. Do you want it back or?
Oh,
It's great to see
you guys haven't changed a bit. It is so good to see you.
Oh, my good friends, what a joy to see you face to face. How long has it been since we have gathered in this place? It is here we find a safe communion. Here is sacred space.
Any space where two or three are gathered in the name of the ones who share their stories with no doubt or shame. It's a space we find the strength to share the stories that we claim.
As we set our fears aside, we find abundant grace. As we weave this tapestry of story, time, and place, we connect to all of God's creation, all our hearts embrace.
Soon the people will arrive here. Soon the people will arrive here.
Tender, fragile souls.
Each with sacred stories, each with sacred stories,
Each part of the whole.
Soon the people will arrive here. Soon the people will arrive here.
Tender, fragile souls. Tender, fragile
stories, each with sacred stories,
Each part of the whole.
Soon the people will arrive here. Soon the people will arrive here.
Tender, fragile souls. Tender, fragile souls. Each part of the whole.
So I was looking around earlier, and I had something I wanted to show the both of you.
word?
Just
Word?
follow me right this way. So you see our community board?
Yeah.
It looks a little plain, and I thought we could do something more creative, artistic, more representative of who we are.
Okay, what you thinking? What you got? Okay, so you know like the art pieces with like the baskets. It
Baskets?
goes over, under, and it's like
Okay.
it's
I
like
think that's so beautiful.
it's like they're weaving.
All are welcome, all invited. Come and join us here in this place where God's persistent love casts out our fear. So just let it go and let God in. We all are welcome here. So just let it go and let God in. We all are welcome here. So just let it go and let God in. We all are welcome here.
It is so wonderful to see you, everybody. We want to welcome you to the Weave Hostel. We hope that you, like us, find this a place of safety, comfort, and trust. Hostels are more than just inexpensive places to stay while you're traveling. Hostels are where people come together, people stopping for rest and respite on their journey. Wherever they're from and wherever they're going, they find a common place to land, even if for a brief amount of time in a hostel. This is a sacred space. What it helps us realize is that even though we have all kinds of different experiences, all kinds of different futures, we do share more than we know. We share this journey through life, and we realize that the more we listen to each other, the more we realize how connected we are.
This hostel is open, welcoming, inclusive, and expansive. That means you are part of it too. What happens here is organic and not in any way static, self-contained, or limited to just us. Our hope and our prayer is that as we share our stories, you are inspired to share yours too, and that you'll feel a deeper connection to us, to each other, and to God.
In a world and a time that is so focused on what divides us, our time here tonight is about what connects us. The stories, the struggles, the hopes, all of it. Every person we encounter, every single one, carries so many strands of so many different stories. Mostly, we'll never know how they all weave together. But we believe that the more we know, the better our chances of finding connection and understanding.
And so we pause here at the Weave Hostel to take a moment to acknowledge the struggles and the pain, but also to recognize the hope and the promise, and realize that more than anything, we're traveling through life carrying all of it. Fears, struggles, anxieties, hope, joy, and celebration with us. The more we share with each other, the lighter the load and the brighter the hope. Welcome.
carry hope, we carry fears, we carry joy, we carry tears, we carry what life gives and takes away. The past, the now, the what will be, I'll fill these bags that we carry with so much more than we could ever say. The bags on our backs are all filled with the stuff that makes us who we are, our lifetime repertoire. These bags on our backs carry more than just fluff. It's the things that left us scarred and the guidance from a star. These bags carry hope, carry loss, carry love. These bags carry help that has come from above. These bags that we carry, carry us. These bags that we carry, carry life. At times he felt so all alone, so lost and far away from home. When we weren't sure that we could take much more. And times of joy quite unsurpassed, and times we hoped would last and last. We felt our spirits, souls, and hearts just soar. The bags on our backs are all filled with the stuff that makes us who we are, our lifetime repertoire.
As we just explained to these folks, this is a special place. We are here to pause just for a moment at the Weave Hostel to listen and to share our stories.
Those packs that you carried in with you are filled with stories and experiences and feelings. Some of them are tough. Some of them involve fear and anxiety and loss and struggle. Some of them are wonderful. They involve hope and joy and celebration. All of that is a part of what you carried in with you today.
As we share our stories, we'll see how they weave together. Of course, your stories are your stories, but when we listen to each other, we realize that we're not alone. We are all connected in love. How about you three?
Us?
Yeah.
Okay.
Sure.
Yes,
Come on, guys.
come, share your stories, the struggles and the fears. This is a safe place. We're all with you.
You know, I don't know if I actually have like a story to tell. I mean, I guess I have a lot of stories. We all do. But I'm not sure how my story or stories are all that interesting or all that unique.
That's okay. That's really the point. It's not about having some big, huge, heroic story to tell. It's about sharing who we are with each other. Mostly, it's the stuff of life, the things that happen every day. Some of our stories are pretty huge. Or should I say, some of the stories in all of our lives are pretty huge. When we share our struggles and our hopes and how certain times have made us feel, we connect. I guarantee you that every story we share tonight will resonate with someone. Most likely, a lot of someone who hears it.
Okay, that makes sense. Thanks for making this safe space to share. I hope you'll all feel the same way. Well, I hold myself to a really high standard. A lot of my self-worth is wrapped up in grades and stuff, so if I don't do well at something, it really brings me down. When pandemic hit, everything I knew about school and study and just the rhythms of life got turned upside down, and for the first time, I actually didn't do very well on some of my tests and missed some assignments. And it just kind of cascaded. The worse I did, the more my self-worth sank, and the more my self-worth sank, the worse I did. I honestly didn't really know who I was anymore. What I learned through all that was I struggle a lot with change. Long as the rhythms and routines stayed the same, I was good. But things happen and things change, and growing up is really hard. There's a lot on the horizon I just can't predict, like college and jobs and stuff like that. I struggle with change in my life, whether it's what I'm doing or whether it's the people that I'm with. Friendships seem to be changing, and I can't control that, and it's really hard, so I tend to overthink it. I really care about the way other people see me, so I tend to overthink things. It's that self-worth thing again. Am I doing this right? Do they even like me? I don't know, I guess that's not really a story though, is it?
It is, though. It's the story of how the things going on around you are affecting you inside, and it's an important part of your story. Thank you for sharing it. How about you, Lily?
Well, I have really bad anxiety about a lot of things. I'm not completely sure how or when it all started, but I noticed I felt anxious about a few things. From there, it just turned into everything. There were more and more things that caused this deep stress in me. During COVID, it was scary to go out of our house. Not really because of COVID, but because of people. Being around people just made me anxious. The thing about this anxiety is that I don't want to say why I feel anxious because I'm afraid it'll come true if I say it out loud. So I don't, which just compounds the anxiety. And I suppose it's part of it, part of being able to try anything. But I procrastinate a lot. And as anyone who procrastinates can tell you, it doesn't do anything to alleviate the anxiety. It just makes it worse because I have longer to worry about whatever it is I'm putting off. So I put it off more, which just causes more anxiety. It's such a vicious cycle. I get so overwhelmed.
Well, one of my biggest struggles is feeling small and weak. Not physically, but in terms of the impact I can make. I want to help make things better, be a better friend, do more to heal all the hurt in the world. But when I get the chance, I feel helpless and useless. I became good friends with someone who doesn't live nearby. They are non-binary, and at the time, they didn't feel like they had any support at all from their parents or family around their own mental health and identity and just life. One night, real late, I got an incredibly scary message. They were in trouble, teetering on the edge. So I called them, and I spent the next hour and a half trying to talk them off the ledge. The whole time, all I wanted to do was reach out and grab them. We worked together to calm them down and make a plan to get help. But all I could do was talk. And that wasn't nearly enough. You see, I want to be able to do more. Somehow it seems like this world with all the violence and the struggle and so much fear. Well, as I say, it takes more than just thoughts and prayers. But it's hard to see how anything we do really makes any difference. You ask yourself, when someone's down, what can you do to help them and not make things any worse? A lot of the time, it just feels so hopeless.
Thank you for sharing your stories. I know that you're not alone in those struggles, doubts, or fears. They are real, and a lot of us feel the same things too. Of course, none of us would be here tonight if those struggles and fears had taken over. Obviously, we found hope that, while not replacing or eliminating those fears, certainly provides a balance and a way to navigate through them. Could you share some of those stories?
The great thing and a source of so much hope and so much joy for me is I know there are places where I don't feel like I need to be more than I am, where I don't need to perform or meet impossibly high expectations, where I can just feel loved for who I am. Church is that place for me. It's a place where there aren't any tests, and I don't have to worry about how fast I read or what awards I've won. It's just a place where we come together and have deep conversations, and also be silly and laugh a lot without fear of judgment or of being treated differently. It's just a place where I can exist and be authentically who I am. And of course, being at church also helps me grow my faith and helps me learn about God and God's love and how it's complete and unconditional and unwavering, just the way I am. Sometimes when I'm feeling especially confused or lost or stressed, I'll just start talking out loud to God. Sometimes when I'm driving alone in the car, I'll just start talking out loud. And it's amazing how much joy and peace and comfort that brings me.
I totally agree about being at church. I feel like I belong there. And while I can't say my anxiety totally disappears when I'm there, a lot of the times it does. And even when it doesn't, I know I'm in a safe place with people who I care about and who care about me. I also find peace in music. I love to just listen to it. It calms me. And I especially feel the power of music when we sing together. Singing is where I can express emotions, feel connected, and being able to sing brings me faith. Music has brought me more joy than I ever thought possible. All of it. Listening by myself, singing at the top of my lungs with my friends, or rehearsing with the choir to sing in worship. The anxiety fades, and the fear. And something else happens. God is in the music, and in the singing, and in the connection, and I feel a lot better.
You know, for me, gathering together with others who are positive and believe similar things as me also gives me the chance to do good with others. A lot of that sense of futility and uselessness actually comes from thinking I have to do it all alone. It turns out that connecting with others who want to make a difference actually helps me make a difference. And yeah, singing is a big part of that. Just coming to choir every week, the people, the community, coming around the piano to sing brings me joy. And also a sense of purpose. I don't know what it is about being there and being with those friends, but I feel a lot more hopeful about actually making a difference. Maybe because those people make such a difference to me.
You know, all throughout the Bible, God's messengers tell people, do not be afraid or fear not or things like that. It's not so much that being afraid is seen as wrong or different, more so that God's love is so much more powerful, even when things seem really tough. In 1 John it says, we have known and have believed the love that God has for us. God is love, and those who remain in love remain in God, and God remains in them. This is how love has been perfected in us. There is no fear in love, but perfect love drives out fear, because fear expects punishment. The person who is afraid has not been made perfect in love.
I think that means that God's love is making us perfect, that we are perfected in love. And the more we focus on God's love, the less we focus on fear, and the more we focus on living in and through that love. It's very clear that God wants us to understand that we are loved and known and understood, and that we are enough. I have a perfect Bible quote in mind for this. Thank you, Michael. I believe it comes from Matthew. In Matthew, Jesus says, "Come to me, all you who are struggling hard and carrying heavy loads, and I will give you rest. Put on my yoke and learn from me. I'm gentle and humble, and you will find rest for yourselves. My yoke is easy to bear, and my burden is light." That feels like a promise and a presence. There is comfort, there is rest, and God is very real and present with us. Jesus is still saying it to this day. Rest in me, lay your burdens down, let me hold you in my arms.
Life seems too much to bear. When you're stuck in dark despair, let me hold you, let me take your hand. I will dry your saddest tears, and I will calm your deepest fears. I will love you, I will understand.
Is easy and my burden is light. My love will be with you throughout the long night. My arms reach out to you and they hold you tight.
thrive on close relationships, on human connection. During quarantine, I felt really lonely. Not more than anyone else I know, but when connection with others can't happen, it's really hard. It wasn't that all of a sudden when we were forced into isolation, I had this new experience of loneliness. In middle school, I didn't have any friends my age, so I spent a lot of time by myself. Then high school happened and I actually made some friends, people to hang out with. Although in the back of my mind, I wondered if they really wanted to be with me. Then COVID came around and I was back to square one. Now that I'm back, I'm kind of haunted by the question, who do I sit with? I don't want to intrude. I had friends, but no one I was gutsy enough to go up to and say, hey, can I sit with you? I'm so insecure unless I get a direct invitation. I'm afraid the answer is going to be no, and I'm going to get embarrassed and then regret and overthink it a month later for no reason at all. A lot of us do that. We go back 5 years later and say, what could I have said to make the outcome a little bit better?
Relationships matter a lot to me too. My struggle though is that for me at least, the relationships I thought I could count on the most have let me down. In a way, it's a lot like you were saying, Alyssa. I thought I was solid with some friends, and it turns out they were acting one way with me and another way behind my back. I trusted them with some pretty personal things, and they told other people. I ended up getting made fun of. It felt horrible. But it's not just that. As awful as that was, it just feels like people let me down. It feels like they've changed, but maybe it's me. I don't know. So, how do we restore trust when trust has been betrayed? And how can I trust again to share deep things when that hasn't worked out so well in the past? I don't feel like I can authentically be myself with most of the people I interact with. I feel like if I am my authentic self and they push me away and turn other people against me, I'll feel terrible. I do have friends, though, that I can count on, that have my back and I have theirs. But I'm leaving for college soon, and they're either staying here or going somewhere else. I just don't know if I'll find those types of friends again.
I get betrayal. I get relationships becoming needy and insecure and even destructive. While I'm in a really good place now, it hasn't always been that way. A while back, I found myself in a relationship that was manipulative, abusive, and toxic. The details don't matter. What matters is that for a while it consumed me, robbed me of my self-worth, my values, and my stability. I was controlled not just by someone I thought I knew and thought I loved, but also my own feelings of shame and doubt and insecurity. It's a really scary place to be. But it's important to recognize it and realize that no matter what, we're not alone. We're never alone.
You know, the thing I've learned is that I can turn to my faith during tough times, especially when I feel alone or feel like the things I used to be able to rely on aren't as steady anymore. Throughout the past 4 or 5 or 6 years, the church has stayed a constant in my life. I've always found a safe place there. And even when I'm not at the church, I still try to keep in touch with my faith and keep the things I do there consistent with what I do out in the world. But mostly it's the people, and being back in the communities I've missed so much during COVID. Being close to people, hugging, seeing people smile and laugh, realizing that I'm smiling and laughing. We spent a lot of time not doing that. It's the most beautiful thing a person can do. And it brings so much hope and healing.
A lot of times, finding a common interest or purpose helps build close relationships. I find joy in the sports that I play. Working together on a team has brought so many close friendships. And I'm proud of myself and my teammates, and I think they're proud of me too. And from that shared experience, which could also be a lot of other things, we learn to create a deeper connection with each other. I'm also extremely grateful to be part of a family that loves and accepts each other, that I know won't abandon or judge or betray me.
I think one of the things we learned in life is there's no cure for a bad relationship better than a good relationship. That doesn't mean that the hurt or the pain goes away, especially when trust has been betrayed and abuse has happened. But finding good and right and trusting relationships has helped heal a lot of what was broken from my past experience. And of course, finding forgiveness, however that can happen. Holding on to the resentment or the bitterness or shame only keeps us stuck in the struggle. Jesus talked quite a bit about forgiveness. It's a part of the prayer that we say all the time and a point of a lot of the parables he's told. In the parable of the prodigal son, the father in the story unconditionally forgives the son who ran away. In the parable of the unforgiving servant, Jesus shows us that God is forgiving and just, and we are expected to follow in that example. Jesus is clear that we all need forgiveness, and we all need to offer forgiveness. That doesn't mean accepting bad behavior, but it does mean not seeking retribution or revenge. It's one of the central tenets of living in a community with one another.
And the earliest community of believers were clear that we were all called to care for each other. In the second chapter of Acts, well, Michael, can I just have the Bible? Thank you. In the second chapter of Acts, the believers devoted themselves to the apostles' teachings, to the community, to the shared meals, and to their prayers. A sense of awe came over everyone. God performed many wonders and signs through the apostles. All the believers were united and shared everything. They would sell pieces of property and possessions and distribute the proceeds to everyone who needed them. Every day, they met together in the temple and ate in their homes. They shared food with gladness and simplicity. They praised God and demonstrated God's goodness to everyone. The Lord added daily to the community.
Was life really that much better back in Bible days? It sounds like everyone got along. They just ate and sang and prayed. What happened when they disagreed or someone felt betrayed? Did no one ever lose their cool, go off on a tirade?
I'm sure between the lines there was lots of stormy weather. We know they fought from time to time about who God loves better. It's human nature after all. We hurt our friends, however.
I think the point is to help us see that life is better together. Together, that's the secret, that's the key. Better together, it is not a mystery. We need each other plain and true, we just can't do it alone. You need me and I need you, the fact is widely known. Because we're better together, it's the truth that sets us free. Sometimes the ones we trust the most betray the trust we show. It leaves us feeling hurt and lost. We feel so all alone. But the truth be told, we've done the same at one time or another. So let's forgive and make amends and let our wounds recover. Better together. We're better together. We're better together. We're better together as us. Because we're better together. That's the secret, that's the key. Better together. It is not a mystery. Better together. That's the secret, that's the key. Better together. It is not a mystery. Better together. It's the truth that sets us free.
I kind of have a little bit of everything. I was born with a hole in my heart, but in a way, that was kind of a cool thing, especially since it healed on its own. Later, I had seizures and was put on medication. And in 3rd grade, I had surgery, and I'm still scared that I might have to have surgery again sometime. It's caused me a lot of pain. I've also had a couple of concussions. It just feels like there's always something. I never feel like I can just let my guard down because I don't know what's gonna happen next. And it's not just the physical things that happen. It's even harder just worrying about what's going to happen next. I don't know, it all stresses me out a lot. All the worry and struggle, it's just so much.
I'm kind of at a similar place in terms of disabilities. When I was a kid, I was on the spectrum. Well, I still am, but it got less noticeable. It didn't affect my academics. Actually, it helped it. Making friends, socializing, that was tough. It also made me feel a little less than. You hear a lot of talk these days about people being on the spectrum, and I guess it's good that awareness is being raised, but it often makes people like me feel like just an arbitrary thing, a point on some graph, something a little less than human. But I'm not a condition or a label or a point on a spectrum. I'm a real, complete, and whole person.
Well, in grade school, I was diagnosed with ADD. It was hard to focus and took me a long time to complete things. The simplest things would take forever to do. Turns out I also have dyslexia, a learning disability.
So do I.
I really struggled through school. I was different from most people. I never got reading. I had trouble understanding. It made me feel worse than everybody else, not as good. I didn't like to talk about it, so I never asked for help. I guess mostly what I've struggled with is myself, and feeling like I'm not good enough. Eventually, my dyslexia morphed into something called dysgraphia, which basically means I'm really bad at writing. But the more names and labels they came up with for what I was dealing with, the worse I felt.
Huh, dyslexia and dysgraphia, and I have dyscalculia. That's the holy trinity of disses. I can't hold sequences of numbers in my brain, like phone numbers or birth dates. Like you, it makes me feel different, or not as good as, or othered.
Dyslexia, noun, a general term for disorders that involve difficulty in learning to read or interpret words, letters, and other symbols, but do not affect general intelligence.
Dysgraphia, noun, impairment of handwriting ability that is characterized chiefly by very poor or often illegible writing, or writing that takes an unusually long time and great effort to complete.
Dyscalculia, noun, a learning difficulty that affects an individual's ability to do basic arithmetic such as addition, subtraction, multiplication, and division. Adults with dyscalculia often take longer when working with numbers.
Dyslexia and dysgraphia and dyscalculia, that's a partial list of all the labels differently able folks like us are dismissed with a dis. Sometimes it's disconcerting the dysfunctions that describe us. They're one small part of all that makes us who we are.
why I never could make sense of things. My studies always put me in a jam. I've learned this isn't something that should bring me shame. It's just a part of all that makes me who I am.
Dyslexia and dysgraphia and dyscalculia, that's a partial list of all the labels differently able folks like us are dismissed with a dis. Sometimes it's disconcerting, the dysfunctions that describe us. They're one small part of all that makes us who we are. There's so much more to being human than just out or the other. The dis is one song in the human repertoire. We are the label that's a disconnection from the human wholeness that makes each of us. The dis is we open up understanding. We'd be dissatisfied with anything else.
I wondered why I never could make sense of things. My studies always put me in a jam. I've learned this isn't something that should bring me shame. It's just one part of all that makes me who I am.
Dyslexia and dysgraphia and dyscalculia, that's a partial list of all the labels differently able folks like us are dismissed with a dis. Sometimes it's disconcerting, the dysfunctions that describe us. They're one small part of all that makes us who we are. There's so much more to being human than just out or the other. The dis is one song in the human repertoire. We are the label that's a disconnection from the human wholeness that makes each of us. The dis is we open up understanding. We'd be dissatisfied with anything else. The dis is we open up understanding. We'd be dissatisfied with anything else.
One of the things I've realized after COVID is that I can live in the moment and also see the bigger picture. Worrying about the future, and especially letting the past control the present, and then letting that bring crippling fear of the unknown of the future, can be paralyzing. I know that God is with me all the time, and I've known healing, and I've been surrounded by the wonders of medicine and by the people who love and care for me. I know that God's plan is going to work out.
I know others of you already talked about this, but one of the greatest joys and most healing things in my life is singing. It's a way of communicating with people when I don't necessarily have the words myself. And it's not just the words, but the music behind it. When I sing, it's like a keyhole in my chest opens up, and the song is the key. And a little door swings wide open and fills me with a bright and warm light. And it no longer matters if I can read as well as other people, or if numbers get all jumbled up in my head, or if my attention span wanders. When I sing, it all makes sense.
Eventually, I made some good friends. I made some not so good friends too. But that's what happens in life. I'm grateful for the good friends and for being accepted for who I am. It's nice to feel like I can be who I am without being labeled or judged or pushed aside.
Healing happens in so many different ways. It was one of the central aspects of Jesus' work in ministry. He healed the sick, not just physically, but more importantly, he brought spiritual healing. He helped change our way of thinking, helping us to understand that the things that afflict us aren't our fault, aren't caused by sin, but are a part of life. He also helped us understand that a life of faith, an attitude of love, can help protect us from self-destructive behaviors, from hatred and isolation, from thinking that God rewards some and punishes others. Healing for Jesus was whole and holistic.
One of my favorite stories is the story of Jacob wrestling with God. It's not necessarily a literal story, more of a metaphor for our struggles with God. Charles Wesley wrote a ridiculously long hymn about it. And he viewed it as a metaphor for our misidentification of who and what God is. I think a lot of our idea of health and healing and wholeness involves wrestling with God. Perhaps beginning with trying to make God conform to who we think we want or need God to be, but eventually realizing that God is in us and with us and working through us. And who and what and how God is love.
In a way, all of our stories of struggle, whether they're about relationships or fears and anxieties or anything else we have to deal with, they all include some kind of loss. Loss of trust, loss of stability, loss of security, loss of self-worth, and on and on. And a lot of times, it's loss itself that brings some of the greatest burdens. grief, emptiness, sadness. I know the three of you, and all of us really, have stories of loss to share.
Yeah, I guess I could start. A couple of years ago, my grandfather died. He was old and all, but it was pretty unexpected. This was the first time I had really experienced death. I was so sad. That was really hard. But through that experience, I learned that a lot of people, maybe most people, don't know how to talk about death. It was crazy seeing people react because they don't know how to react. Most of my friends didn't say much, if anything. Even my family had a hard time talking about it. Then, a couple months ago, my grandma died. She was sick a long time, but it's still really hard. Death just seems so final. This time, though, I guess I was a little more prepared, and I decided I would talk about it. I think this helped other people realize that death isn't something to go unnoticed, but something that happens to all of us, and that we need each other to get through it.
My parents got divorced when I was a kid. I really didn't understand. For a while, I thought maybe it was my fault, but they both helped me see that it wasn't me. If it wasn't me, though, what was it? I thought they loved each other, and even though they would argue a lot, I never thought a day might come where we didn't all live together. Looking back, I think they really did try to make things as easy or normal for us kids as possible, but there is nothing easy or normal about it. I had 2 places to stay and split my time between their houses. 2 bedrooms, 2 breakfast tables. Nothing felt familiar or normal. I still had both my parents, and I still do, and I'm really grateful for that. But somehow, it felt like I didn't have all of them anymore. It still makes me sad.
All of us have lost friends or acquaintances. A few of us were friends with a boy who was killed by a truck while biking to school this past year. All of us have lost friends and classmates to suicide. This is the time in our lives when we shouldn't be losing friends without even getting to say goodbye. I think all of us are especially shaken up and anxious about gun violence. I feel like nowhere is safe anymore, not going to the grocery store or walking down the street or even going to school. One of my friends lost her sister. She was pregnant and she was killed in a drive-by shooting. It just doesn't make any sense.
You're right. It doesn't make sense. And whether we've lost grandparents, parents, siblings, or friends, loss cuts deep and it brings tremendous pain. Sometimes it feels like a mountain that we can never get over.
The loss of you, 'cause he brings me pain. The loss of you, 'cause he brings me pain. The loss of you, 'cause he brings me out in the rain. Where you're pouring and pouring and pouring upon me, and love is your name.
Oh, the pain becomes a river, and the river becomes an ocean, and the ocean holds the spirit that washes over me, and the spirit marks the memories, and the memories fill the heart space, and the heart space knows no limits, and the loss is made whole.
The loss of you, 'cause he brings me pain. The loss of you, 'cause he brings me pain. The loss of you, 'cause he brings me out in the rain. When you're pouring and pouring and pouring upon me, and love is your name.
You're the feast upon my table, and the open chair beside me, and the love that holds such goodness, and the widening heart I know. You're the words that I have written, and the story that's been woven. You're the tears shoulders that know my sorrow, and forgiveness in my cup. Oh, how generous the doorway. Oh, that calls me to lean in. Oh, the things we gain from losing. Oh, they teach us to begin. Oh, how generous the doorway. Oh, that calls me to lean in. Oh, the things we gain from losing. Oh, they teach us to begin. The loss of you could see brings me pain. The loss of you could see and brings me pain. The loss of you could see and brings me out in the rain. When you're pouring and pouring and pouring upon me, and love is your name. You're pouring and pouring and pouring upon me, and love is your name. You're pouring and pouring and pouring upon me, and love is your name.
One of the most powerful ways to keep the ones we've lost with us is through memory. Sometimes memory can be hard because remembering the one we lost and the times we had with them reminds us that they're gone and we won't have those times ever again. But I actually think that memory is a way to continue to enjoy those good times. Every moment in life is fleeting. It's over before you even know it. The memory of that moment, though, keeps it alive and weaves it into our being so that it becomes a part of us. That is so much more true when it's the memory of someone who has been significant in our lives. I think remembering, nurturing, and celebrating those memories keeps them with us in a really real way.
What I've learned and continue to learn is to savor each moment. Kind of like what you were saying. Make the moments count so the memories will be strong and positive and meaningful. Things might not be like they used to be. And that's hard and that's sad. But there are still moments to create, moments to savor, moments to embrace. I try to do that with whichever parent I'm with, or with friends who may have moved away, or with family members who live in a different state or country. Sure, there's an emptiness when I'm not with them, but that's a good time to rely on the memories and be grateful for the time spent together. That also leads me to create moments of connection and significance. They're still there, and they still make a huge difference.
I also think that sometimes finding hope requires us to take action. Sometimes hope depends on us breaking through the fear and despair and defeat so that hope can shine through again. It might seem like we're never going to be able to stop the epidemic of gun violence, but the kids who survived the Parkland shooting in Florida, they've created a movement called March for Our Lives. They're speaking with passion and conviction and love, and they're not giving up, and their actions are inspiring others. This is something we all can do, all the feelings of hopelessness, not just about gun violence, but climate change and racism and heterosexism and religious intolerance and white supremacy and on and on and on. But for every one of those seemingly insurmountable issues, there are voices speaking up, taking action, leading others to action. They don't seem to think it's hopeless, and if they don't, neither do I.
I think that's what Jesus was talking about when he told us to be salty, to let our light shine, working for justice, to right the wrongs, to speak up for the least, the lost, and the lonely. I have another perfect Bible quote in mind. Thank you, Michael. This is exactly what Jesus is talking about when he said, "You are the salt of the earth. But if the salt loses its saltiness, how will it become salty again? It's good for nothing except to be thrown away and trampled under people's feet. You are the light of the world. A city on top of a hill can't be hidden. Neither do people light a lamp and put it under a basket. Instead, they put it on top of a lampstand, so it shines on all who are in the house. In that same way, let your light shine before people, so they can see the good things you do and praise God who is in heaven. He didn't whisper this or say it to only his closest followers. He proclaimed it to everyone who had gathered to hear his Sermon on the Mount. We create moments. We make hope happen. These are all the ways of being salty, of letting our light shine. Oh, a city on a hill can't be hidden. Cause you therefore shines a light for all to see. And the heavens, they will open up and shout to all the world. I know you are enough.
Oh, I am enough. As light to the world. Just as I am, just as I'm a child of God. Oh, I am enough. As light to the world. Just as I am, just as I'm a child of God.
You can turn my Sunday morning into dancing. You can mold your grief and struggle into joy. You can gather up the memories and cast aside your pain. Crying, oh, you are enough.
Oh, I am enough. As light to the world. Just as I am, just as I'm a child of God. Oh, I am enough. As light to the world. Just as I am, just as I'm a child of God. We will remember you are enough. Savor the goodness, you are enough. Stand with the lonely, you are enough. Break through our fears, you are enough. Gentle with courage, you are enough. Speak with compassion, you are enough. Proclaim the message, you are enough. Light of the world, oh, I am enough. As light to the world. Just as I am, just as I'm a child of God. Oh, I am enough. As light to the world. Just as I am, just as I'm a child of God. Just as I am, just as I'm a child of God. Just as I am, just as I'm a child of God.
What we've shared here is life. We could go on and on telling our stories of pain, the times that we have suffered, and the places that we found community, the light of dawn that shines through the darkness, all the more brilliant for the contrast.
I'm sure if we kept going, each story would spark 10 more, and not just with us, but with all of you.
Hopefully, this has simply been a stopping place along the journey, a place to pause and be together and share together and watch the beautiful tapestry that emerges as the strands of our stories weave together. You're right, Tyler. For every time we trust enough to share a part of ourselves with one another, more and more stories are sparked, more and more strands are woven together. The more we see God's love and creativity at work. The beautiful poetry of Psalm 139 sings to God, "You're the one who created our innermost parts. You knit me together. Your works are wonderful. I know that very well. We are fearfully and wonderfully made." That knitting together that the psalmist writes about certainly includes the struggles and the fears and the anxieties and the hopes and the joys and the celebrations of all of our lives. God is the creator, is with us through it all, and is the one who weaves us all together.
We are so grateful that you joined us tonight to listen to our stories. Perhaps these young people felt safe sharing their stories with you because they've grown up with that. They've grown up with bedtime stories at home and circle time stories at school and Bible stories at church. They understand the importance of stories. Stories are the things that speak truth into our lives. And at the beginning of the show, Michael said these words which I think are worth repeating. In a world and a time that is so focused on what separates us, our time here tonight is about what connects us. The stories, the struggles, the hopes, all of it. Every person we encounter, every single one, carries so many strands of so many stories. Mostly, we'll never know how they all weave together. But we believe that the more we know, the better the chance of finding connection and understanding. So it is my prayer tonight that we begin to focus on the threads that create the strongest weave. The ones of inclusion and listening and accepting and loving and expanding ourselves to be more in this world than we ever thought possible. These are the threads that have the potential to connect us and create the most dazzling tapestry we've ever seen. And my hunch is we can do this, one story at a time. I'm going to ask Pastor Sue to come up and share with what the offering tonight is going to.
So this is another story to share that this congregation had the joy. This has been, 20-some years ago. Pastor Ruth Mathis was retiring from ministry, and she said, instead of giving me a gift, put money together in a scholarship fund. And so for however long that's been, something like 20 years, we've had the Ruth Mathis Scholarship Fund. And one of the things that happens for young people applying to go to college is that the kids who have really good grades, they can get scholarships that are academically based. And the kids who come from really struggling families can often get need-based scholarships. And when we look at scholarships, we take into consideration the academics, and activities, and the need-based, but we also take into consideration something the other places don't do much of, and that is their involvement in church. And so tonight, we're going to take up the offering for the Ruth Mathis Scholarship Fund so that we can continue to build that fund. We offer it not just to kids who are just graduating from high school, but to adults who are pursuing a second career or another opportunity. So it's a wide range of things. And I thank you for this chance to support this great fund.
Robin, I think you wanted to say something?
Thank you so much for bringing this story to us. This is their furthest north tour stop, and your only stop in Washington State. So we put together a little basket of goodies that are our way to welcome you, not just to Mill Plain United Methodist Church. We are very happy to have you here, but also to welcome you on your northernmost stop and to wish you a safe journey back home. Thank you so much. This was wonderful.
And as we take the offering, as always, we invite any Starfire alumni to come forward and sing our last song with us. So, Bronwyn, come on and join us.